Helheim. A frozen land of darkness and despair. Here lie the souls of those who didn't find honor in their death, waiting for Ragnarok to come. This was my reign. Until they turned against me.
Developed by the team and Not a Number and published by 34 Big Things, Helheim might just be one of the most promising indie games to come out of northern Italy in the first few months of 2019. We've had the chance to play multiple demos of this title at the various events we attended last year, but all of them were still pretty much a work in progress that only showcased specific parts of the game itself. Nevertheless, there's a lot to say about what's essentially Not a Number's first commercial release, at least as far as PC gaming is concerned. Now that we've received the key for the full version of Helheim, it's time to give it a closer look and see exactly what makes it tick. Right from the start, Helheim seems like a pretty polished product, built on top of the popular Unity engine. The menu we'll first encounter once we boot up the game does its job, although I would personally have liked more options when it comes to graphics customization and performance scalability. This is not a game you'll be able to play on an older PC, and the devs recommend at least 8GB of RAM and a GTX 960 to enjoy the experience in full. Past a short tutorial that introduces us to the main mechanics we'll use in the game and a brief clip that tells us more about the plot, what we have here is essentially an isometric hack and slash that also features some of the most typical mechanics of the bullet hell genre. Hela, the Scandinavian goddess of death, has been imprisoned by a mob of unknown opponents. Now that she's managed to escape her shackles, she is ready to kick ass as she reclaims the realm that's rightfully hers. On par with the plot, the gameplay in Helheim is also quite straightforward and intuitive. Our protagonist's only preoccupation seems to be slicing as many of the interlopers to pieces as she can, and will be able to achieve that in a variety of ways, both using her trusty sword, as well as a number of special abilities. Coincidentally, at least in my opinion, this is where the game can become a bit off-putting, especially for casual players. There are two main things in Helheim that really make me break a sweat and ultimately question my ability to progress through the adventure. When I think of the first one, an infamous line from A Fistful of Dollars comes to mind. When a man with a 45 meets a man with a rifle, the man with a pistol will be a dead man. The old Mexican proverb the Ramon so confidently says in the movie also rings through in Helheim, where fending off ranged attackers or using only your sword can sometimes become a challenge. Granted, Hela can deflect bullets by swinging her blade and even slow down time to surprise her opponents, but even that doesn't completely level the playing field. Both of the things I just mentioned rely on the player's reflexes, meaning missing the mark by only a fraction of a second will ultimately lead to the protagonist's early demise. Add the fact that most enemies will be able to target you even if they're outside of your vision, and playing Helheim can definitely become frustrating. So be prepared to die a lot, at least until you figure out how to waltz around the levels with the grace of a professional ballerina, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it's something to keep in mind if you were expecting a game that you could simply pick up and play in short bursts. On top of that, Helheim was clearly developed with controllers in mind, and that shows whenever you try playing the game with a mouse and keyboard. Mimicking the precision of an analog stick through digital keys can be a hassle, meaning you'll often end up showing your back to the enemies or getting stuck in the scenery after a dash instead of meeting your foes head on. While the issue remains far from game breaking and shouldn't be the reason you won't give the game a chance, I think a quick patch could solve the problem. Perhaps giving players the choice to control the camera with their mouse or even use the peripheral to attack and dash might be the solution here, as it would make it easier for those that do not own a controller or simply don't want to plug one in only to play the game. Aside from these minor issues, however, Helheim remains an astonishing result for a team that only recently entered the turbulent world of independent game development. The narration, which is mostly delivered through monologues and cutscenes, is on point, and the plot, albeit simple, stands well on its own legs, returning a story that will leave you hungry for more even once you've finished the game. In addition, the voice actor used for Helheim sounds as if they were just born for the role. And while most believe graphics and appearances have nothing to do with the success of an indie game, I think the team at Not a Number deserves some praise for the environments they were able to create. The desolate plains of Hell, with their fiery pits and the cascades of lava, look as dreadful and fear-inducing as the ancient skulls of Viking Scandinavia had probably imagined them. The whole game exudes mysticism, and every level I navigated was littered with details and embellished by small objects that made what I was walking through look a lot more realistic. If I were to nitpick, which is a thing I'm pretty popular for, I would say that Helheim could benefit from a bit more music, simply because the tunes currently featured in the game do tend to become repetitive after a short while. All things considered, I stand by my idea that this little indie game deserves the full attention of the international gaming community. Helheim is a particularly well-made project that sets a standard of quality for Not a Number, and that has all it needs to make it big in the world of independent entertainment. The game, which includes 15 achievements and can be finished in the best part of 3 hours, is currently available on Steam for $9.99 or your regional equivalent. A little price for a title with a lot of potential. So, by all means, you should give it a go. You might discover a hidden gem to add to your collection. And to the development team behind Helheim, I want to say this: you did it! Your first release was a good game that will likely be successful. Now you have a solid base to start with. Please continue making amazing games.